Hello everyone, welcome back to Ace Wisdom. Week 4, When You Win Without Them, Volume 4, Episode 24. They didn't leave you, they lost you. And there's a massive difference. That avoidant ex you still think about late at night? They didn't walk away because you weren't enough. They walked away because they were too emotionally stunted to handle someone who was. They weren't ready, not for the truth, not for intimacy, not for consistency, not for you. They told themselves the story that you wanted too much, when deep down they knew they were offering too little. And the worst part, they thought walking away would make them feel powerful, that detaching would give them control, that you'd break, fall apart, chase. But you didn't. You rallied. You reset. You chose discipline over drama, healing over humiliation. You didn't lose them, you survived them. And that's the difference between people who bend and people who build. Let's get this clear. The breakup, it wasn't your loss, it was your catalyst. Because nothing exposes a person's emotional poverty like watching you thrive without them. And that's what today's episode is about. Welcome to Week 4, When You Win Without Them. This is Volume 4, Episode 24, and if you've been riding with me all the way from Week 1 to Week 3, first of all, thank you. You're not just watching these videos, you're walking through the fire with purpose. You're shedding illusions, building emotional muscle, and becoming the version of yourself that no longer needs external validation to feel whole. In Week 3, we explored the storm of confusion that hits when you start pulling away, how your absence turns into their obsession. But now, we go deeper, because Week 4 isn't about waiting on closure, it's about becoming the closure. And this episode, the breakup wasn't your loss. But here's what your avoidant ex lost, is your personal reckoning. If you stay with me till the end, I'm going to walk you through exactly what your avoidant ex gave up when they fumbled you. We'll unpack the 5 irreplaceable things they lost, the kind of things no rebound, no distraction, no situationship can ever truly replace. And trust me, it's going to hit. Now listen, most people walk away from breakups thinking they did something wrong. They obsess, they overthink, they rewrite every moment, trying to pinpoint the second they became too much or not enough. But what if I told you the truth was neither? You didn't mess up. You just outgrew someone who wasn't ready for your capacity. Your presence was too rich for their appetite. They couldn't digest someone who offered real intimacy when all they knew was emotional rationing. Let's look at this through a Stoic lens. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." You were the wealth, the peace, the stability. The rare one who didn't just want love, but knew how to give it. But avoidants don't operate in reality. They live in survival mode, where closeness feels threatening and detachment feels safe. They don't run because you were wrong for them. They run because you were too right. And now, they're waking up to a cold bed, a phone that doesn't light up, a silence that used to feel like freedom, but now sounds a lot like regret. Let's be brutally honest. They lost someone who loved them despite the chaos, despite the cold responses, despite the inconsistency, despite the way they weaponized distance as power. And you gave them patience. You gave them grace. You gave them time. They gave you breadcrumbs, excuses, empty space dressed up as needing to figure things out. But here's the plot twist. You did figure things out. You figured out that love without effort is manipulation, that silence isn't peace, it's punishment, and that someone who avoids their own feelings can never hold yours. So if you're sitting here wondering, did I matter? Do they even care? Did they ever love me? Let me answer that for you. Yes, you mattered, yes, they cared, and yes, they loved you, in the only way they knew how, but their version of love wasn't sustainable. It was survival dressed as connection. It was self-protection masquerading as detachment, and you outgrew that. So today, I'm not here to tell you what you lost. I'm here to remind you of what they'll never get back, because healing isn't just about moving on. It's about waking up one day and realizing they lost the best thing they never even knew how to hold. So here's what I want you to do. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. Week 4 is the final round, and you're going to want to be locked in for every episode coming up. The clarity, the confidence, the closure, it's all loading. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Join the channel membership if you want access to exclusive deep dives, unfiltered strategies, and bonus videos I only drop for members. That link is right there in the video description. And now, here's your CTA for this episode. Drop this mantra in the comments. They lost peace when they lost me. Type it with power. Type it with certainty. Not for them, but for you. And when we get to key point 4, I've got a secret mantra waiting. The first person to comment it down there will get pinned. Let's go, because the real loss wasn't yours, it was theirs. And now, we're about to break down why. Stay focused. Key point 1. They lost their emotional safe space, but they won't admit it. Avoidant exes love to act like you were a burden. Too intense, too emotional, too clingy. But let's tell the truth they'll never say out loud. You were their calm in the chaos, their emotional anchor, their unspoken sanctuary, the one person who held space for everything they were too scared to face alone. And now, it's gone, snatched, cut off. They thought detaching would give them peace, but what they didn't realize was, your presence was the peace. See, here's the irony with avoidance. They crave connection, but fear intimacy. They want love, but flinch at vulnerability. So when someone like you shows up, open, honest, emotionally available, they get overwhelmed. Not because you're too much, but because they're too underdeveloped. Psychologist Amir Levine once said, avoidants are often attracted to people who bring them closer to intimacy than they've ever been before. But when it actually happens, they panic. That's exactly what happened here. They panicked. They mistook safety for pressure, closeness for control, your softness for smothering. But now that you've stepped away, now that you've stopped over-explaining yourself, stopped chasing, stopped pouring into someone with a leaking cup, they're feeling that emotional drought hard, late at night, when the noise dies down, when no one's texting, when the old distractions don't hit the same. That's when it creeps in. The ache for you. Not just your touch, but your presence, your patience, your loyalty, your way of making them feel like they were allowed to be human. They lost the one person who didn't shame their flaws, who saw the little boy or little girl behind all that emotional armor, who gave them grace without expectation, but they'll never admit it. They'll keep posting, keep smiling, keep pretending like you were just a phase. But behind all that fake indifference is someone starving for the comfort they now realize was never guaranteed. So remember this, you weren't too much. You were just too healing for someone who was addicted to their wounds. You weren't intense, you were consistent in a world full of avoidant chaos. And now, their little world of distance, control, and I need space has collapsed under the weight of your absence. They lost their emotional safety net, and they won't find another one like it. Let's move to key point 2. Key point 2. They lost the one person who never made them earn love. Let's cut through the noise. Most people only love avoidance until it gets hard, until they shut down, until they pull away, until they start with the disappearing acts and cold indifference. But you stayed. You didn't just fall in love with the version of them that was sweet, funny, and charming. You showed up even when they ghosted you emotionally, even when the room felt cold, even when they acted like they didn't need anyone. And that was rare, because here's what avoidants don't realize until it's too late. Most people stop loving them the moment they stop performing. But you loved them through the shutdowns, through the distance, through the defensive walls they thought would protect them, but really just pushed love away. You were unconditional in a world that only gave them love when they were being good. That's what they lost. And here's the twist. They'll go out there chasing validation from people who only love them for their looks, their money, their mask. But none of those people will ever love them like you did. Love that wasn't a reward. Love that didn't keep score. Love that said, you don't have to earn this, you just have to show up. And now that you're gone, the difference hurts. They feel it every time they try to connect with someone new, only to realize that connection is transactional, conditional, surface level. Because you were depth, you were presence, you were the kind of love that looked at their wounds and didn't flinch. Let's be clear, you saw them, all of them, and still said, I'm not leaving, and still they left you. That's what makes this their greatest loss. Because love like yours, it's not on every corner, it's not waiting in another situationship, it's not going to be copied and pasted into the next person they trauma bond with. They lost the one person who offered love with open hands, not with ultimatums. The one who understood their triggers but didn't weaponize them. The one who said, I'll hold you down, even when they couldn't explain why they kept pushing you away. And now they're back in the world they thought they missed. And suddenly it feels cold, transactional, hollow. So no, you didn't lose someone who was emotionally unavailable. They lost someone who was emotionally present and still willing to stay. They're going to realize it too, not through some grand epiphany, but in the quiet. When they meet someone new and it just doesn't click, when the new energy feels like effort, when they realize, damn, that love I had, that was real, but it'll be too late. Let's keep going. Key point 3. They lost the one person who made them feel seen. Without performing avoidance don't want love. They want acceptance, but they've been conditioned to believe they have to earn it. They think they have to be charming, aloof, successful, desired, admired, just to be safe from rejection. So what happens when they meet someone like you, someone who doesn't need the mask, who sees through the act, who makes them feel valued even when they're not performing? They panic, they sabotage, they run. Because when you're used to performing for love, being seen without earning it feels exposed. See, what most people don't understand about avoidance is this. It's not that they don't feel deeply, it's that they hide deeply. Behind sarcasm, behind I'm fine, behind detachment and distractions. But you cracked the code. You spotted the subtle shifts in tone. You noticed when their smile didn't reach their eyes. You read them, even when they said nothing. You didn't just listen, you understood. And that scared the hell out of them. Because once someone sees you, you can't pretend anymore. You can't hide behind coolness or emotional distance or the I'm unbothered performance. To be loved but not known is comforting but superficial. To be known and not loved is our greatest fear. But to be fully known and truly loved, that's what we long for. Timothy Keller. You gave them exactly that. You didn't love their highlight reel. You loved the raw version, the confused, inconsistent, emotionally avoidant version. And now, they've gone back into hiding, back into the shallow end of connection, back to relationships where no one sees past their curated image. But here's the thing. Once someone has felt real intimacy, even just for a moment, fake becomes unbearable. They lost the one person who saw their soul without judgment, who didn't demand perfection, who didn't need performance. And no matter who they meet next, there will always be a gap, a disconnect, a hollow space where you used to exist, because you didn't just date them. You witnessed them. And now that you're gone, They're surrounded by people who only see the surface, who don't ask the deeper questions, who don't get them. They're realizing the difference between being admired and being understood, and they lost the one person who gave them both. Get ready. Key point 4 is where we drop the secret mantra. Let's go. Key point 4, they lost their emotional power over you, and that's driving them crazy. Let's get one thing straight. Your avoidant ex wasn't just keeping distance for their sake. They were doing it to control the emotional dynamic. Because when someone fears vulnerability, the only way they feel safe is by keeping the upper hand, by making you feel like the one who wants more, like the one who's chasing, like the one who's emotionally weaker. It's subtle, but deadly. They didn't respond quickly, so you were left anxious. They pulled away, so you had to reach out. They kept things vague, so you had to guess where you stood. That was their game, and they were winning until you stopped playing. Let's talk psychology for a second. Avoidants are wired to feel overwhelmed by intimacy, but they also get a secret sense of control when they know you're more emotionally invested than they are. That's how they keep the power, by staying just distant enough to keep you insecure, but close enough to stop you from walking away. But guess what? You walked anyway. You stopped over-explaining. You stopped checking in. You stopped performing for someone who couldn't even name their own emotions. And in doing so, you flipped the script. Now they're the one overthinking. They're the one wondering if you've moved on. They're the one checking your profile at midnight, scrolling through your stories, wondering who that glow is for. You reclaimed your emotional authority, and that loss, it burns them in silence, because they can't control what they can't reach, and they can't forget what they couldn't fully possess. You are now the unanswered question, the what if they can't shake, the one that got wiser instead of weaker. And that's what makes this your power move. Not begging, not posting quotes, not trying to make them jealous, but simply becoming unavailable to the same cycles they used to trap you in. So, if you're ready to seal this transformation, here's the secret mantra. You can't lose control of what you no longer hold. First person to drop that word for word in the comments gets pinned. Say it with your chest, not for revenge, but for release. Because once you reclaim your peace, you stop being someone they can manage emotionally and become someone they can only miss. Let's take it home. Key point 5 is next. Let's finish strong. Key point 5. They lost the future. They secretly wanted, but were too scared to build. Let's end this with a truth bomb. Your avoidant ex didn't just walk away from you. They walked away from everything that could have been. The long nights, the soft mornings, the inside jokes, the shared goals, the calm life you were quietly offering, the emotional wealth most people spend decades trying to find. They lost the long game. Here's what avoidants never tell you. They do fantasize about a future, a stable relationship, kids, a home, peace, a partner that just gets them. But when it starts to feel real, when the bond deepens and the guard starts to slip, fear takes the wheel. Fear of losing their independence, fear of being hurt first, fear of being seen, loved, and left later. So instead of choosing courage, they choose comfort. Comfort in detachment, comfort in old patterns, comfort in chasing people they don't actually have to build with, because that feels safer. Most avoidants don't fear love. They fear being known, then abandoned. Modern attachment theory. So what did they lose? They lost the rare shot at building real intimacy with someone who wasn't there to control them, fix them, or manipulate them, but to grow with them. You were that mirror. You weren't asking for perfect. You were asking for effort, for maturity, for a connection built on truth, not performance. And now, Now they're surrounded by short-term flings, transactional attention, and surface-level admiration from people who will never match what they just let go of. You weren't just the one who loved them. You were the one who understood the vision, even when they couldn't articulate it themselves. You were the blueprint, and now they've lost that future, the one they secretly wanted but didn't feel worthy of, the one they could have had if they'd only leaned in instead of pulling away. But it's too late now. You've evolved, you've upgraded, you've become the kind of person who doesn't chase potential. You attract alignment, and they're stuck romanticizing a future they destroyed with fear. So let's recap what they truly lost. An emotional safe space, unconditional love, someone who saw them, emotional power over you, a future they'll never get back. You didn't just move on, you leveled up. Now hit the comments and type this loud. You can't lose control of what you no longer hold. Remember, first one to post it gets pinned. And if you felt this message hit deep, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, join the channel membership, link in description. We've still got more coming this week to finish off Volume 4 with fire. Let this episode remind you, you weren't the loss, you were the lesson. And now, you're the upgrade. Let's keep rising. So let's make it crystal clear one last time. You didn't lose a person. You lost a pattern, a draining, emotionally bankrupt loop that kept you stuck trying to prove your worth to someone who never knew what to do with it. They didn't leave a situation that was broken. They left the version of you that would have let them stay. And now, you're no longer chasing. You're no longer begging. You're no longer dimming your light just to keep someone else from squinting. You became the version of yourself they never believed you'd become, and the second they realized they couldn't control your emotions anymore, they lost control of their own. So here's your last reminder. You can't lose control of what you no longer hold. First person to comment, it gets pinned. You already know the deal. If this episode hit you in the gut, in the best way possible, like this video to help it reach more people stuck in avoidance cycles. Subscribe and turn on all notifications because we are just getting started. Join the channel membership for exclusive bonus drops and raw content I never post publicly, links in the description. And now, let's talk about what's coming next. You thought they didn't care. You thought they walked away clean. You thought your silence meant nothing to them. But what if I told you the moment you stopped giving a damn is the exact moment they started losing theirs? In episode 25, I'm breaking down the 5 unspoken triggers that send your avoidant ex spiraling into obsession after you let go. We're talking real psychology, how your emotional detachment flips every power dynamic they tried to control. If you want to know what made them start lurking, start fantasizing. Start questioning if letting you go was the biggest mistake they ever made. That's where we're going next. So don't miss it. Final week. Final fire. Volume 4 is going out with a bang. You already know what to do. Lock in, level up, and let's keep winning. Without them, let's get it.